Hello, everyone. Today's topic of discussion is about molar uprighting and distalization with bracket head implants, biomechanics, and clinical perspectives. So we're going to deal about a very complicated case where the lower left, second, and the third molar are impacted. So we'll go directly to the case. So this is a patient who presents with a chief complaint of irregular and forwardly placed upper front teeth and a cystic swelling in the lower left side. This patient did not have any relevant medical history. He was 22 years of age and he was a male. So like regular orthodontic cases, we tend to take records. The frontal one shows that his face is pretty balanced and there is no midline issues. His smile shows that there is a lot of crowding and forwardly placed upper front teeth. When you look at a 45-degree view, you would note that there is forward placement of the upper front teeth. And the profile view shows that there is mild convexity in the profile. It's basically a compensated class 2 situation. When we go into the intraoral photographs, we would note that on the right-hand side is a class 2 division 1 malocclusion. Dental crossbite is noted in the molar and deep overbite is present. If we look into the left-hand side, you would note that there is grade 2 mobility in 3-6 associated with a history of dentigerous cyst. The 3-7 and the 3-8, that is the second and the third molar, are missing. Mostly they are impacted. When you look at the frontal view, you would note that there is crowding and proclination of the upper anterior teeth, and there is associated deep bite. So when you look into the occlusal view, you would note there is proclination of the upper anteriors and crowding. And in the lower, there is lower anterior crowding. There is buccoverted 3-6 and 4-6. And the most important thing is that 3-7 and 3-8 are impacted, and there is mobility in 3-6. And there is also impaction of 4-8. When we look at the radiographic view, things become much more clearer. We know there is a mesioangular impaction of 4-8, a mesioangular impaction of 3-8, an impacted 3-7 associated with a dentigerous cyst, and there is a 3-6 which is grade 2 mobile, and there it has undergone root resorption also. So it's impacted 3-7 and 3-8 with mesioangular impaction of both the teeth. We took a CBCT and noted that there is displacement of the infraalveolar nerve canal associated with the 3-7 and the dentigerous cyst, which needs to be taken into note if at all we are doing a surgical process. When we analyze the cyst in a much better way with a CT scan, we note that the dentigerous cyst is about 2.5 centimeters into 1.5 centimeters in diameter. That's quite large. There is the buccal cortical plate expansion and thinning. And we also noted that there is root resorption in 3-6 region with grade 2 mobility. When you get a occlusal view in a CBCT, we note that there is quite a big dentigerous cyst associated with 3-7. There is a discontinuity in the cortical bone. There is buccal cortical plate expansion and thinning. And that's conformity that it requires a surgical intervention. When we go ahead with cephalometry, we note that the upper incisors are a bit proclined, and there is significant amount of overjet of about 10 millimeters. The lower incisors are also proclined. So it's basically a compensated class 2 situation. So we are planning to do a composite analysis. And we do an initial tracing, which clearly shows that the upper incisors are proclined. And when we superimpose it over the facial photograph, it shows that it's an A and B which is higher. The upper incisors are proclined and the lower incisors are also proclined, but still the overjet is about 10 millimeters. When we take the cephalometric values, it becomes much more clearer. It shows that the A and B is 6 degrees, which is a class 2 skeletal base. The upper incisors are quite proclined and forwardly placed. The lower IMPA is more before the treatment. The FMA is 13, which shows it's a severe horizontal growth pattern. The nasolabial angle is acute. And the soft tissue is not quite balanced as we would expect. So it's a class 2 skeletal base, a horizontal growth pattern, proclined upper incisors, proclined lower incisors, convex facial profile, and acute nasolabial angle. So what's our treatment plan? Our treatment plan is based on this article by Maltoni, which talks about marsupialization of dentigerous cyst followed by orthodontic traction of two retained teeth. So what is our treatment planning? The planning is retraction and decrowding of the upper incisors for correction of overjet. So we need to extract 1/4 and 2/4 in the upper arch for that. Decrowding of lower arch and alignment of 3/7 and 3/8, because we really don't want to lose out on the teeth and do enucleation, because then we would be left with no other option but a prosthesis. So we are planning to extract 3/6, which is already compromised, and 4/8, which is mesoangularly impacted. We might require a bit of proximal stripping in the lower anteriors because they are already proclined. So what do we plan to do? We plan to do a surgical intervention. We need to do a marsupialization of the dentigerous cyst and preserve those two teeth and bring them into line. So you can go through this article by Pogren at the American Journal of Orthodontics in 1995, which talks about surgical uprighting of mandibular second molars. Now, this could be one of the options, but we prefer the orthodontic perspective. So what's our philosophy or the appliance that we are going to use? For the maxillary arch, we are planning to use the formula M, that's MBT Mechanics, Empower 2 interactive self-ligating appliance system. So the maxillary arch, we have a significant torque value of 17 and the lateral incisors for +10, which shows that we need to, will be able to bodily retract the upper anteriors. So the torque, which is standard, which will have a controlled tipping of the proclined incisors, which is the need of the arch. So the mandibular arch, we are also planning to use the formula M, Empower 2 self-ligating system, which is the regular MBT values. So it would prevent a lot of lower incisor flaring. So what is the wire sequencing for this case? Rather than using an Empower, we are using 016 NiTi in the upper, 018 SS followed by 018 SS, then 1925 NiTi for 90 days. And then the upper retraction would be on a 1925 stainless steel, which took about 400 days time. That's actually a posted archwork. And then we need to settle the occlusion. So it's going to be with 014 NiTi for 30 days. The lower is basically alignment of the teeth. So 016 NiTi and segmental mechanics for uprighting of the molar teeth. 018 SS, 1925 NiTi, and 1925 SS sequential. So we'll go ahead and talk about this in detail. So there is a lot of biomechanical perspective which we need to look into. Because it's a very complicated situation, we need to use both the pull type of mechanics for uprighting of the molars as well as the push type. So we need to dislice the 3/8 and then when it uprights and dislices, if the space is adequate, the lower 3/7 is going to erupt. If the space is not adequate, then we need to further dislice the 3/8. So that's our plan. You can go through this article by Lee, which talks about various mechanics of uprighting of the mandibular second molar. So that's our initial plan. So let's see how it works out. So we went ahead with it. What did we do is these two teeth were impacted. By this time, the marsupialization of the cyst has already been done, and the extraction of 3/6 was also done. So we placed a long head TAD. That's because there's a lot of soft tissue in that area. So the head should be longer. Otherwise, the implant would get embedded within the soft tissue. So it was 1.5 into 11 millimeter TAD, which was used. And then we placed an attachment on 3/8 after exposing it surgically. And then an E-chain was used. However, if you note that after the initial uprighting, the space between the 3/8 and the TAD is so less that further activation is not possible, even though it was placed in the TAD was placed in the ramus. So what did it do? It had a clockwise rotation. So it uprighted it and disliced it a bit, which allowed the 3/7 to slowly come out into line. So we go through this article by Eckhart, which talks about orthodontic uprighting of horizontally impacted mandibular second molars. A whole lot of articles which you can go through. So when that happened, an initial some amount of eruption had happened and further space was required, there was no other option to place the screw. So what we went ahead was with the push mechanics. In this push mechanics, we used a bracketed implant, and then we used a compressed coil spring to upright and dislice the 3/8 further, so that we can create enough space for the 3/7 to come in line. So that's uprighting and dislicization that's going to happen with the bracketed implant. This is the push type of mechanics. Now, how did the treatment progress? So that's the progress of the treatment with respect to molar uprighting with bracketed implants. So we can see that there is a bracketed implant which is being placed, which is 1.5 into 8 millimeters. Then we have a 018 SS Australian wired, which runs from the bracketed implant to the 3/8 molar tube, and there is a compressed coil spring. When it opens up, it applies the third molar further and dislices it further for the 3/7 to come out into line. So how did the treatment progress with respect to the occlusal perspective? What happened was now you kept a little bit of wire extension so that dislicization and uprighting can happen. So bracketed implant was placed and you activated the coil spring. After about 3-4 months, you can see significant amount of molar uprighting has taken place and a lot of space has opened up. So significant dislicization happened. The advantage of bracketed implant here is that it prevents lower anterior flaring, since the anchorage is absolute anchorage in this case. Otherwise, had we used dental anchorage, the lower incisors, which are already proclined, would have proclined further. So after a few months, the 3/7 has come into line, but it came out rotated. So we need to derotate and align the 3/7. So we need to maintain the space what we have achieved. So now what we have done is we have placed a open coil spring which is not activated just to maintain the space. And then we are using a couple in the form of an E-chain to derotate the 3/7. So after a few months, when enough derotation has happened, we placed an eye-tie for minor corrections, whichever was pending. So that's for the derotation. So with respect to the upper retraction, which was the main objective of the treatment with respect to the patient, we went ahead with critical anchorage in the upper, and therefore we used TADs in the upper. The working archware in the upper was 1925 stainless steel posted archware. So we had placed a TAD, which is a simple 1.5 into 8 millimeters. A coil spring or a E-chain was placed, and a force of about 180 to 200 grams was used for retraction process. However, not everything goes smoothly. What happens during this retraction process is that retraction did happen, but upper and anterior extrusion can also happen, and the posteriors can also intrude a bit. This is a bit unpredictable. But then when problem creeps up, we need to correct it. So what is the problem that creeps up is that we got a little bit of open bite in the posterior and the palatal cusp was hanging during the retraction process. In this retraction biomechanics, some of the palatal cusp was hanging between 3/6 and 3/7. Now, sharp cusps are very difficult to handle because unless and until we get a good occlusion, what happens is that you might develop a TMD at a later date due to occlusal interference. So how do we plan to correct it? When there is a palatal cusp hang, the biomechanics that is simplest to follow is that you can use a torque in the wire, but this is one of the simplest way to use it. Whenever there is an intrusive force on the buccal side, there is a clockwise moment that generates, and the palatal cusp tends to hang down. Now we can place a TAD in the palatal aspect, place an attachment, and just put a force so that you get a counterclockwise moment now, and your palatal cusp intrudes, and the buccal cusp comes down. That's the easiest way that you can correct this. Otherwise, you have to do a lot of wire bending or change wires in between the treatment. So how did we plan to correct it? So we see a palatal cusp hang that is there. And now what we did was place the implant out there in the palate, put an attachment and intruded the palatal cusp. so that the occlusion comes well seated at the end of the treatment. So this is the treatment in progress in the final stage where we are going ahead with settling. As you can see that the parietal cuspal hang has already corrected and good amount of settling is happening on a 1,4 NiTi wire. So this is the end result that we got. That's a beautiful occlusion that we got at the end of the treatment. That's a class 2 molar and a class 1 canine relationship. That's because you had extracted only in the upper arch. The left-hand side was also having good occlusion. So we had de-impacted the 3.7 and the 3.8 and brought them into line. From the frontal aspect, the overjet is completely gone. The midlines are absolutely perfect. And the correction of proclination and crowding, which was the main objective or the chief complaint of the patient. From the occlusal perspective, we know that all the space closure has been done and proclination and crowding has corrected in the upper arch, apart from the cross bites and the crowding in the posteriors, which was there. In the lower arch, decrowding of the lower anterior was done and de-impaction of 3.7 and 3.8 was done, which was the toughest part of this treatment. So what did we get at the end of the day? We got a balanced face. The midlines were perfectly on. The smile aesthetics was pretty decent at the end of the day. A little bit of less the incisal show, but then that's the best that we could achieve. Good smile aesthetics. And the profile was maintained at mild convex, but then it's a very, very acceptable profile considering that the patient has a bit of mandibular retrography. So what did we achieve with respect to radiographic perspective? Initially, during the course of the treatment, extraction of 1.4, 2.4, 3.6, and 4.8 was done. But what startling results that we got was that elimination of the bony defect. We had removed a huge cyst, and after the T3.7 and 3.8 has come into line, there was no bony defect remaining at the end of the treatment, which reconfirms the fact that whenever we do orthodontic tooth movement or molar uprighting, we can eliminate vertical bony defects or horizontal bony defects if at all they're there. You can go through this article by Male OAC, which talks about that in detail. So what is the cephalometric perspective which we got? We did retract the upper anterior significantly, but the lowers did procline. We could have gone ahead with the lower incisor extraction, but then it's a compensated class 2. And considering the severity of the treatment, we went ahead with only a bit of proximal stripping. So that's the tracing post-treatment, which shows a normal overjet and overbite. So the superimposition at the end of the treatment shows that a pretty balanced facial profile was attained at the end of the day. So let's go into the numbers, what we achieved. The ANB reduced, that's about 5 degrees at the end of the day. Then we got upper incisors were seriously retracted. That's a lot of retraction which happened. The lower IMPA did worsen a little bit, very minutely. The FMA was maintained at 13, which is a horizontal growth pattern. But the nasolabial angle and the lower lip E line shows promising improvement. So the end result was still there was a slight class 2 relationship, horizontal growth pattern, but well camouflaged skeletal class 2, along with getting all the dentoalveolar corrections into place and a balanced soft tissue profile. So let's do a pre and post treatment comparison, quick review of distalization de-impaction. So we placed a bracket head implant, we uprighted it. Once we uprighted, the 3.7 started propping out into line. Once it's got into line, we started to extrude it with the NiTi, and once it was placed, we got a perfect occlusion at the end of the day. So the results were very, very good as per with respect to the severity initially that we had seen. From the occlusal point of view, let's recap a bit about distalization and de-impaction. So we had a bracketed head implant, we distalized it. We see the 3.7 popping up. We derotated the 3.7 and then brought them into line, and a perfect alignment of teeth was attained. So let's go into comparison of pre and post-op. So that's the comparison of the format of the face from the first, from the front, which shows competent lips and a balanced facial format. The smile shows the correction of crowding and an aesthetic smile was attained. So we got a correction of proclination also with respect to a 45-degree smile. And the profile at at the end of the treatment was well maintained, and balanced soft tissue contours were attained. So a comparison of the lateral cephalogram shows that now we got a lot of retraction of the upper incisors and we corrected a lot of overjet. The lower incisors did procline a bit. So retraction of the upper incisors, a little bit of proclination of the lower end incisors. So what happened in the OPG? So initially we had all these impacted teeth, what we have already discussed, and a dentigerous cyst. So we extracted these two teeth, uprighted, we did a marsupialization of the cyst and uprighted the remaining teeth and brought them into occlusion. So what is the end result? The end result was very promising. We had the 3.7 and 3.8 into line. So uprighting and de-impaction of the lower second and third molars was attained. So we got a lot of appreciation from the side of the patient, and that's a wonderful gift for a doctor because he understood the amount of labor that went ahead with treating him and the results that we got. That's always a plus apart from the excellent results that were attained. If you want to know more about the mesially impacted mandibular second molars and corrections with mini screws, you can go ahead and read the biomechanical perspective of it, of molar uprighting and tabs by this beautiful article by Ma on the November 2015 edition of the American Journal of Orthodontics. Now, this is COVID time, and it's all that we can do is stay positive and time to rebuild. And slowly and surely, let cautiously and safely get back to routine. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Have a wonderful evening.